Alright. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In the top left side of the map, we've got Team Liquid's Clem. In the bottom right, we have, that's right, it is Maru. He's playing on a barcode, but this is on the EU ladder. And we are going to break down exactly how this is possible and why are we seeing not just the weird, crazy grinders like Hero and Beyond hopping on to play EU tournaments with 300 milliseconds ping. Why is Maru on EU ladder? Why is Percival on EU ladder? Why are Rainer and Trigger, living in Korea right now, also playing on EU ladder and EU tournaments very frequently? So I'm going to fill you guys in on the nitty-gritty details of that as we go on. But first of all, I want to focus on this game because honestly, Maru against ClemTOSS we have never seen. And it is a matchup I have been dreaming of because I'm like, I've been saying, look, who's going to stop ClemTOSS? He's dropped one finals to Cure. I think he dropped one to Beyond in a weekly cup as well. The Cure one was a couple $1,000 tournament. It was a slightly big, I would say medium-sized online tournament, not like a big online tournament, definitely not a big LAN event, big Premier tournament. But, you know, other than that, he's dominated most of the top Terran players. And we've been saying, you know, it'd be cool if Clem could play against himself. Because who else is going to be good enough to beat him? You know, TY's retired. Maru only shows up to big LAN tournaments, and they never seem to make it to clashing in this matchup, which is kind of a bummer. But the fact that now we actually get to see the Maru versus Clem fantasy matchup and see which way it unravels is awesome. Very standard opening for Clem. He's gone Cybercore before Nexus with a Gateway Scout. He's rotating around to try and let his shields regen. He wants to block this right now because you can see Maru's got 400 minerals. Maru cancelled his Marine to get the command center down. Very, very clever adjustment. Obviously, that does delay the command center slightly as the probe attacks it, and because he actually loses that Marine production, oh, Maru's got to be careful. So the probe harassing really effectively there. Now, the Marine will come out and defend that for now. Command center was delayed by the probes a few seconds, so if he chronos in a depth, there might be a small chance he gets there in time to hit that SCV. I'm not sure if it's possible or not. You might be wondering, why was the barracks idle? That's part of this build. If you go for one of these command center straight into factory builds, the barracks always idles a bit, so it's actually almost always good to cancel the first Marine, build the command center. You still have time to start the Marine up, build the factory, and then you'll still be waiting a second or two until you start that reactor. Bunker goes down on 220, which is picture perfect bunker timing. No later than 220, if you guys want to know that. It takes 29 seconds to build, which means it's going to be ready at, what, 259? 249, sorry. And that should be just in time. Ugh, 10 seconds. Okay, the shade's just finished though. Can't shade again. Command center is also about 10 seconds now. Depth shade's coming in. It's going to be finishing with about 3 seconds left. That SCV is only going to take 2 hits to die. Bunker does finish barely in time. The SCV is looking exposed. Do hot swap for Maru. Very nice hot swap. Can the command center load the SCV in time? Yes, it can. Oh, but he misclicked and he moved the SCV back. He needed to run that SCV forwards and tell the bunker to grab it. And that would have been a little bit nicer. As it is, though, it's only a 1 SCV loss, not a big deal. He's got the factory building a Widow Mine, Marines building out of the reactor, and the starport on the way. So I think a decent opening for both sides. Clem maybe with a slight advantage in that, yes, he's found some damage, and he's going to go for a blink into second gate follow-up. You can see now he's maintaining vision. This is just going to tax the multitasking a little bit of Maru. Nothing he hasn't dealt with before, but Maru is missing SCV production right now, guys. So he's focusing a little bit more on the Marines, the Mines, the Medevacs than he is on SCVs. See, now he queues up another SCV there. Okay, now he's back on point with it. 2 more Marines start as well. I love the constant vision here for Clem. Looks like Clem wants to go very quick third Nexus as I say that. No, he's going to go Robo third gate anyway. So super generic play here. Nothing too wild for him. Marines try to move out, but the Adepts are just tracking it so well. So it's just going to be a mine drop. Now, I think with this sort of play, probably it depends. If the Stalkers are going to warp in time, they're in the correct location. I think because he's got such good vision of his main, Clem knows this natural's a bit more exposed, especially with this mineral line having so many access points. Stalkers do not have blink, though, and this should be a good Widow Mine drop. Sorry, I don't know why that was lagging there for a moment. Widow Mine does get burrowed. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Okay, so he gets 1 Widow Mine shot off. A little bit of mining time, single probe. Nothing too crazy to write home about, and he will be able to hang in the dead space and chill. Behind this, Raven's tank, second and third barracks are all on the way. Looks like he wants to go back in early here. Okay. Oh, interesting. That's a very early boost, which means he's going to run out as the Stalkers are already on top of him, and he's going to go to that dead space, but he's taking so much damage. Oh, I got to be a little critical of that move. I don't think he should have boosted there. Should have saved it. And this dead space here, I don't think is as effective as this dead space. But I guess Ah, it's because the Raven, he wants the Raven to attack the natural, and then the Widowmine attacks the main. I don't know, I kind of feel like threatening the third from this side's better, because then you have 2 access points. You can go there or there. Makes it harder for Clem to defend. Whereas the way he's done it is a little bit more basic. You know what I mean? Like he probably hasn't played many games on Winter Madness, but this top left corner, you don't have a lot of room to squeeze out, especially now that you're deep in the red. Okay, the Stalkers are there. Of course, the Observer will spot if your tank moves forward, so I think just sending the SDV to repair is the mature decision. Forge, Robobay charge, all on the way here for Clem. Playing very solid, very stable. Stalkers, nice move for Clem. Gonna get himself a few SCVs. Doesn't lose any units. The Adept Shade in the back as well. Oh, damn, how many SCVs is he getting? This is big. This is really big damage. I'm not sure why he cancelled his Shade there, as those Adepts are gonna go down. But 6 SCVs in total, so he's got 5 more SCVs there. Only loses 2 Adepts and a bit of hit points on the Stalkers. Raven does come in. Looks like he's used an auto turret. He's got 1 kill. Can he get a few more? He's going to get a 2nd kill and not quite able to get a 3rd. The Stalkers actually clear that up really quickly. Oh, he goes in with the Mind Drop in the main, but the Stalker does take out the medevac, which means the pressure is completely over now. Good pullback. Blinks, dodges, goes immediately back to mining, puts his workers back on gas. Clem has completely shut down Maru. Maru has been completely shut down in this game. We've got 3 more barracks, 1 factory, and 1 starport there. 4 more gateways are building. Okay, so he's got 3 gates going on 8 gateways. Colossus coming out, extended thermal, that's +1. Raven's done no damage. Oh, this is just a very clean opening for Clem. It's super textbook, super in practice. There's always a question about where Maru's practice level at. And I always think Maru's the king of cheeky timing attacks, but he's played a very standard style. And I think standard style against Clem's Protoss, I mean, it's his first time ever playing it, maybe, sniffing out his opponent a little bit. It's ladder, it is a low-stakes environment. But Maru normally is a guy who's much more cheeky, sneaky, timing attack-oriented. Lots of tricks in his TVP. But in this particular game, he's played incredibly straight up. And because of the fact that he's lost his Widowmine drop and his Raven with almost no economic damage, does put him in a hard spot. Raven rejoins here, but he already used the scan to kill the Observer. Kind of funny there. Oh, nice volley on the tank there. Does damage it a little bit. Any hit points off those tanks before the fight start can be good, but remember, charge is done and Colossus. This is an anti-timing. +1, charge, and Colossus Ranger all about to kick in. You cannot fight here as Maru. Maru has to stim to defend his siege tanks. Tanks need to focus on the Colossus, but he doesn't target the Colossus. He did not target the Colossus with the siege tanks. Might not have been able to kill it anyway, but taking massive damage. Oh my gosh, she's going to lose a full medevac as well. That's a disaster, mate. Maru. He's going to try and Doom Drop counterattack. I don't think Clem's going to give him any respect. Yeah, Clem dives. He dives forward. He knows that Maru can't fight him front on right now, and Maru's best bet is to just keep him defensive, so Clem just goes for it. He's going to dive the enemy natural. There's nothing there to defend. Maru has to pull to the high ground and try to mount a defense with whatever's popping out of there. Recall is available. Will he go for it? It looks like he's already done some good damage. He's going to recall everything except the Zealots. Recalling on that base, though. Already one of the medevacs does go down. The Stalkers will blink forward as those medevacs fire. Oh, the Widowmines fire, I mean. And one of the full medevacs goes down. Maru taps out a dominant first meeting. I would not say this is a massive win. Wow, you've taken some ladder points off Maru. I'd say this is the first border skirmish. And I think Maru's now got the same respect every other Terran has learned recently about Clem's insane PvT and just how dominant this was. This was incredibly clean. Alright guys, so I told you guys I'd run you through how the whole VPN thing works. Apparently it's called Gear Up. I got this info from Rainer down here, and apparently they've got the MS down to 140 milliseconds. I wrote a few notes down here because a lot of you have never played with lag. You've played in North America, you've played in Europe, you've always been matched on your local server because you're not a top level player who's matching on other servers and going to play tournaments on other servers. So previously it was about 250 to 300 ping from Korea to EU, okay? Which is unplayable. Occasionally Beyond and some of these guys would try to play a qualifier, but it's just awful. So let me run through these pings and explain exactly how big these differences are and then what's changed between them. So first of all, 0 milliseconds delay, instant reactions. And I believe with milliseconds, I think it might be double this number because it's got the delay is to get there and then the same delay to get back. Maybe you guys in the comments who know that. The exact specifics of it, let me know. Because 200 milliseconds, 0.2 second delay doesn't sound like a lot, but it feels like so much more when you're actually playing. And I'm wondering if that's just because I'm playing so fast, my adrenaline's pumping or whatever, I'm just used to things happening quickly, or is it that it is actually double that in terms of the effective weight? You guys let me know in the comments. So anyway, 0ms, super smooth. First time I ever experienced this was when I first went to Korea back in 2012. I was used to playing with about 150 to 200 ping. I was shocked. They have often, it was almost always 2 milliseconds. It never went above 4 millisecond delay when I was playing in the Prime house back in 2012. It is just, it feels so smooth. And if you're someone like me from Australia, or you're from South Africa, or maybe a Latin America, and you're usually playing on US servers rather than the Brazil servers, it's such a rare treat when you first get to play with this. You're like, I can't believe that people take this for granted if they live near a server. It feels so good, man. Now, if you go up to 100 milliseconds, that first 100 milliseconds, I really feel like this is imperceptible to the vast majority of players. Pros will complain about it, of course, this affects my play, it does make a difference, but it is essentially a small delay. This is going to affect you most in very intense micro situations. So if you're 3-Racks Reaper trying to kill another Terran player and you're trying to, dodge grenades and pull back weak Reapers and that sort of stuff. If you're trying to surround Hellions with Zerglings, this sort of thing. If a tiny fraction of a second matters with landing a feedback before their EMPs get off, something like this. This is where you're going to notice this. But for most players, 100 milliseconds barely affects their performance in StarCraft 2. And even at pro level, I don't think it makes a big difference. If Cyril's playing with 100 milliseconds against a rank 10 player in the world who's got 0 milliseconds delay, I don't think it's going to meaningfully shift the odds. It would give them more of a chance, but I'd still bet on Cyril every day of the week. Now, when you go up to about 150 milliseconds, this is where you really start to feel it a bit more. You're still competitive, but intense back and forth mechanical wars. If it's like a Clem versus Raynor ZVT with Widowmine versus Ling Bane micro, it'll make a massive difference. If you've got like a mechanical Bio versus Widowmine, Biomine versus Ling Bane ZVT, there's just so much multitasking to do, and you just start to make more mistakes, and the more intense it is, the more you're at your mechanical limit in those sorts of games, you start to make a huge difference. But in slower games, it doesn't really matter. If it's a TVP matchup and you're both picking slower builds, Phoenix Colossus against a bio build-up, and there's not that much fighting, it's more scouting and posturing, and it's more build orders and optimizations, doesn't really matter too much. Now, when we get to 200 milliseconds, the next one, this is completely playable with a few big buts. You will do anything in your power to avoid having to reactively micro, it just won't work. If your opponent's forcing you to micro 2-3 places, whether that be against Widow Mines, Roaches running in here, Roaches running in there, people dropping storms on you, poking in and out with Colossus, you don't want to end up in a protracted situation like that, because it's just, everything's just delayed and it's so slow, and it's really hard to multitask because things don't happen instantly. So often you have to wait for actions to do the next action. So there's a lot of like, you will try to surround your opponent's army and force one big engagement. Like you will roll the dice a bit more and force things to get out of these situations where you have to multitask really hard. Sometimes people, they watch my stream and they wonder why are you trying to force it at this point? And I'm like, I'm playing with 200 ping. I can't just like sit there in a micro dance for 5 minutes. Like, even just defending like, the Blink Stalker Oracle pressure as Zerg with like Ravages, Lings, Queens, and you're constantly like moving in and out and trying to pull back weak Roaches and morph them into Ravages while keeping up injects behind it, and you got to run your Lings forward to set off stasis traps. I can do it for a minute or so, but the longer it goes, the more I'm kind of incurring this mechanical debt, and it's really hard to keep my injects up, keep spreading creep, and to not bleed too many units out at the same time. Also, things like transfusing Queens versus a 2-1-1 or detonating Banes on enemy Lings at the right time just becomes usually impossible. If 16 Marines focus Queen, you literally, because you can't cast Transfuse on it until it takes the first hit point of damage, by the time you're able to give that order, the Queen's dead by the time the game registers that command. So this is the 200 millisecond joy is, if I've got Queens against the 2-on-1, I have to preemptively pull back the Queens I think he's targeting, because if he's able to shoot twice with his Marines, he can always get 2 shots off, 2 volleys before I can transfuse. So I need to get the Queen out of range of at least some of the Marines to have a chance of it to survive. Just to give you an idea, this is the sort of predictive micro you start doing. If Hellions I'm trying to surround them with Lings, I need to preemptively split my Lings to both sides, because he might at any point juke me and just change and go the other direction, and I'm not going to be able to react in time. So I just split my Lings to both sides, and I need to just have extra Lings if I want to surround Hellions. This is the joy of 200 millisecond delay. You start to also build up this mechanical debt. So a few examples that come to mind. As Zerg, your macro cycles are delayed, because often what you'd do is you'd inject, you'd build your units, and then you want to control group those eggs, add them to your army. But because you're waiting for the game to register those 20 Zerglings you just built, you got to wait for the lava to turn into the eggs, then you can control click it and add it to a hotkey. And that might not sound like a big delay, but when you're having to do that every time you build units, and you're playing at 300, 400 actions per minute, and you're playing against a guy who's harassing you and stuff, when you're at your mechanical limit, when you need every single action in those intense moments, this really, really hurts. And this is why you'll see people just do a roach all in, do a slower style where they don't need to have perfect injects and creep spread, you know, while you'll do a Nidus Worm more often when you play with this sort of stuff. And you also don't want to go to the super late game as well, because there's so much to manage there, and you've got that little mechanical debt, that little lag for each individual thing. An example for Terran here I wrote as well is when you want to leapfrog siege units, you have to wait for them to unsiege before you can queue the next siege order. Normally you can grab a siege tank if you're playing with no delay, press unsiege, right click it somewhere else, shift siege. Done. You do it all in one action because it immediately registers the unsiege of it and gives you the ability to tell it to have a new siege order. You're playing with 200 milliseconds delay, you got to wait for the first unsiege to register. So all you can do is say unsiege, and then you got to do something else and then tell it to go siege somewhere else. So you just kind of have to do twice as many actions in a lot of situations to get the same effect. A lot of the shortcuts that are normally available don't work with this much delay. So when a game is calm and under control, it's fine. The moment you get in a scrappy game where you need to use all 300 plus APM effectively, you really start to feel the 200 millisecond handicap. Now, anything above 200 milliseconds, I kind of put into the unplayable at a competitive pro level territory. Don't get me wrong, I play 300 milliseconds. Very occasionally I get put on Brazil. I refer to this as quicksand. You feel like you are just drowning. All you can do is sneaky all-ins and timing attacks that rely on surprise more than any sort of micro. You can't defend multi-prong harassment very well. You can't micro very well. You can't attack in 2 or 3 places very well. You can't go to a macro game or play anything fancy. Beating any top-level player just becomes an actual nightmare at 300 milliseconds delay. So that's the context. Now that you've got this idea of what each ping... Remember, players were playing 250 to 300 ping, Korea to EU previously, which was... It was this quicksand range. It was crazy that you would occasionally see a Korean player qualify through the EU region for one of these big global, like, Katowice tournaments or something like that. It really was... I don't think a lot of people who haven't experienced it realize how frigging impressive that is. People complain about, oh, the player's playing from Europe to America or Korea to America. That ping is like 140, 130, 150, that sort of range. Sometimes 160, 170. It's nowhere near. When you're in this quicksand range, 200 to 300, 200 or greater, like 220 greater, it is just a nightmare. All right, so anyway, guys, what I was shocked by is I really thought the ping would at best go to like 190, 200, because, you know, you're still dealing with this massive, massive distance. So just to give you guys context, right? This is Korea. It's over here, guys. It's over here. And the server's over here. I don't know if it's either France, Netherlands, or Germany, somewhere over there in kind of Western Europe, right? Very far away, right? They might have moved it at some point. But anyway, that's a long distance to go. However, it used to go this way. It used to go over... Sorry, I'm pointing at Japan. Which one's the Korean peninsula? There we go. That one there. It would go from there over here to like California or whatever, bounce to the East Coast, and then bounce over there. And you can see, look at how vast that distance is, right? I didn't realize that every single VPN did that previously. Whereas now, this new VPN, it goes through Asia. I'm not sure if it goes through India, Central Asia, Russia, but it goes directly through, and you can just see how much less distance that is, South Korea to Western Europe. And that is why it isn't just 190, 200. We are actually looking at 140 millisecond delay. I have that. Rainer reported this to me, and I was shocked because, like I said, guys, 140 is in this range. It's competitive. In really tense Clem versus Rainer war, it will make a big difference. But against most other players, like Rainer can still play top tier multitasking StarCraft with 140 milliseconds. I mean, this is amazing. The fact that Koreans can play EU at the same level they used to be able to play on the NA server and still are able to play on the NA server is crazy. So this is a massive improvement. At first I thought it was Starlink or something, and then Scarlet, I think it was, who dropped in and said, no, actually everything used to go through America. And I was like, surely not everything used to go through America. But yeah, I mean, this is the way it's been. In Australia, it used to be when StarCraft 2 came out, if there was 2 of the biggest providers in Australia that had most of the internet, and one of them would go, if you wanted to go to Asia, it went America and then back to Asia, even though we're next to Asia. So you just couldn't play on your own local Singapore. Our Singapore server was the Southeast Asian server for us back in the day. And like 50% of Australians just couldn't play on it because of that. Now, you know, over time, I've seen the pings get better and better. internet connections are better. There's more fiber optic cables running along the oceans. Generally, the companies I've gone for are also not the cheapest, crappiest companies, so they tend to have slightly better routing. And I've seen the delays get lesser over the years, but this is such a monumental leap, and this is exciting. We're going to see Maru, Percival, Hero, Beyond, Cure, all these guys are going to be over there actually playing EU ladder now. And this is exciting for me. I want to see Rogue on that EU ladder. I want to see Dark come back from the military and get on there. I really hope we see a lot more of that, because the top player base is not that big in StarCraft 2 anymore, and the fact that we're all disjointed in these separate servers is a real pain. We were actually fantasizing about this at Stellarfest. A few of the players were saying to me, hey, wouldn't it be great if we just combined all the regions into one? You've still got all the existing servers, but they're all on the one gateway. So Americas, Europe, Asia, all together, and that way, you know, you've got the biggest range of possible opponents, based off of MMR, and like it would just be really good for you getting a ladder experience where it's not so small. And I know the Korean players especially were complaining about this because they felt like the Korean player base on ladder was like literally it was just the same group of 20 pros. It'd be like, oh, are the other guys on? Because if they're not, there's no point in me laddering, right? So if everyone's at an event traveling, Korean ladder was just pretty dead. It was the same like 3 or 4 guys playing against each other when it came to top GM players. So the ability to combine this could completely revitalize, I think, a lot of the EU tournament online scene, hopefully not being as Protoss favored. Hopefully we get more Korean Terrans and maybe even Solar, Shin, Rogue get over there. I think that would be good because there's way too many Protoss in the online tournaments in Europe. But I also just think the ladder itself could be a lot more exciting as well. Hopefully give some more variety. You guys know I'm a big fan of Serral's first-person view stream, Clem's, Rainer's, all these guys. If we can see them run into more players, that would be great. Because, you know, sometimes you tune into a Serral stream, 2 hours video, I get open, I go, yes! And he's got quite a few games against, it's just max packs on repeat, or he's, you know, he's playing against a few 6.3, 6.4, 6.2k guys who, they're competitive, but, you know, they almost never take maps off him. If we can have a bigger rotation there, it's just going to be so exciting. I don't know. I think for me, hopefully we get more interesting streaming, more interesting competition. You guys let me know what you think. I think this is really exciting news. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. And also let me know your greatest stories of playing with lag. My one would be back in the day in Australia, we had to compete to qualify to play at a big IEM tournament by playing in the Asian region because we were bad. And they basically said, we're not going to give you guys any more spots guaranteed to these tournaments because you guys go to these tournaments, you just get wrecked. So they put us in the Asian region, which meant you'd win your own local qualifier, and you get to play the Asian finals, where the top 2 players would get a spot at IEM. Guess what? Asia includes Korea at that time. So I remember in 2014, I got to play a qualifier against Zest and Sue, who were both GSL champions that year, I believe. Well, Sue was like a 6-time runner-up, but Zest was won a GSL that year. And it rained near my house. So not only was I playing with my normal 150, 200 milliseconds delay to the Korean server, but it rained. So I also my internet started spiking where it was going up between, it was 1,000 to 2,000 milliseconds for both whole series, playing a ZVZ against Sue and a ZVP against Zest. Suffice to say, I was proud that I managed to make it to the late game. I couldn't micro anything. I should have done crazy all-ins, but I wasn't very good at adjusting my strategies to extreme circumstances back then. And I remember my kind of like crowning glory that tournament was beating one of Zest's maxed out armies in the late game and then losing to his remax because he was on like 9 base late game SC2. But anyway, that reminds me of just the absolute torture we used to have. It was a nightmare playing on the old connections. Playing in Australia, of course, is just a stupid idea as a pro gamer. But anyway, you guys let me know your stories. I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. And if anyone sees Maru or any of these guys play any good series online, recommend them. Message me. Let me know in my Twitch chat. Let me know in my YouTube live stream chat. Let me know in my comments. Any tip-offs about these high-level matches are really good because I will hunt down the replays and I will cast them. I'm especially excited to see the continuation here of Clem versus Maru. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Goodbye and good night.